Turn the mic on. There we go. See, look at that. I learned that as well. So again, we're going to pop through this as quickly as possible. Hopefully today is a exciting day of presentations and work that you're going to do. Let's kind of kick off into. I'm going to kick off. It says on. We're too far away. Oh, there we go. Okay, a little bit off. So we have the boundary maps. Are we excited about that? Give us a round of applause. Give us a round of applause. Come on. We got to be a little more excited about that. Boundary maps, they're hole punched, right? Fit in there. So we have those. So you've got the district-wide where the schools are, and then you have the elementary boundaries, the middle school boundaries, and the high school boundaries. And really, as we get moving into the next steps, those are going to be key areas in which not me, not the team, but MGT will be working with you, probably remotely, but they'll be working with you to put boundaries together, look at cohorts, all that stuff. But we still have more work to do, because what we have to do is give them what the parameters are so that they can build ideas and scenarios for you to look at. And that's one of the things that we're going to look at today. As we go through that, and we have Preston Thomas from Oakland Unified School District, who's here today to share stories from Oakland and what they've done. We're going to do a transportation update, and we're going to talk about this resident student cohort to get through all of that. Again, here's our purpose. And remember that we started that we were going to have 8 meetings of information. We're going to have 8 meetings of information. We haven't got through 8 meetings, but we're getting there. Right, and so it's really going to, why that attendance thing is important is so that we all have the same information when we get to like analysis and options and some of those great configurations, which really I know everybody wants to get to it today, but is a few months out with more information. Okay, and again, we have the website that has been updated. So parking lot questions that you asked last time. And this final one didn't get updated to you, so let me do that. Reading it to you. So if Duncan Holbert, and this will get passed out to you and updated on the website. If Duncan Holbert students integrated into general ed classrooms, will be more BTs, assistants, et cetera, hired. And so basically it's unknown at this time. The staffing decisions will be within the budget process. The idea is not to have individual students placed in general ed classrooms. The idea was to move the entire class of Duncan to another elementary where the class of students would attend the school from preschool through grade 5. If the student exited special education, then the student would still attend the same elementary school in a general education class. Okay, the next one is Renaissance the only one? The answer is no. And it's Rio Del Mar, Valencia, Aptos Junior High, and Aptos High School are also affected by chromium. And then the next one is why are interest transfers being denied if all schools are not at capacity? Parents obviously want their children to attend a particular site for a reason. All of that is based upon staffing. So the school has a projected enrollment, and that projected enrollment has X number of teachers associated with that, and we'll talk about that in cohorts. And so if 10 students more enroll, but they're not going to have a class of 10, then those would be denied. So there's a staffing ratio that goes along with that. There seems to me that all the work and research has been done. Can we get the information to our conclusion? The answer is there is no conclusions, right? And so I can tell you right here, right now, I don't know. We haven't gone through the whole process. We haven't gone to that part. All of you have a better idea than I do. Because you have this, I think this could happen, or I think that could happen. I'm going to wait till we have all the data and we work through options with MGT. And I believe that the administration is going to do that exact same thing as well. And then receiving texts about a bond, and a survey has been commissioned by the district to determine if a new bond election should be considered by the board in the next few months, as current facilities needs are not met by Measure M. And that will actually be, the survey will be on the next board agenda. And the results, and there'll be a presentation by Dale Scott and Company about that survey and what the results of that survey were. Okay, and then this one. So we could not answer this for you last time, which we had a long conversation about why is there administrative positions. This is on the district's website, and has been on, and you know, I'm going to say prompted by you guys with a great question. And we said we have to answer that question. So let's get a statement out and be able to do that. If you have the question, everybody else has the question. I'm going to give you a moment to read that before we switch over to the next. Wait for Preston over here to tell me it's done reading. Okay. And then this is the next paragraph associated with that. So as we've said many times before, every question is a good question. We just can't answer every question, right? We got to go somewhere else, get the information, bring it back. So again, every question is a good question. This one was a hot question, so we wanted to get that one right away. Other ones are going to take longer, you know, and that's that idea. We have all the information. I can tell you we don't have all the information. It's being built as we go every day. And really part of the, you know, the process for me here is that this will determine what we are going to do with Sergio and the team and Gerardo on facilities, right? So this committee and whatever you do will impact how we spend that $300 million. That's why I'm here to help with that process as we go through. And here's the boundary maps. And again, these are from MGT, and this is the software that they have that they use to provide the enrollment projection reports. And they are a company that does this nationwide. And I talked to Cassandra just the other day when we were asking her for this, and she was working for a district in Illinois that they're working on, along with districts in California. And again, that's what they do once committees like ours come together with what we want the schools to look like. Okay. And then again, here's where all the schools are. And remember, the boundaries do not include charters, do not include schools that draw students from the entire district. So any questions on those items? Going. Okay. We're now going to jump into Preston. This is next in the 23rd. Preston's going to do another round of this. He's going to do two, bringing his experiences from another school district doing this all the time. We're going to do staffing analysis from Central Unified School District. Central Unified commissioned a study with Capital Advisors for staffing, comparing themselves to like districts, and Pajaro Valley was one of those districts. And we will share with you the results from that study that compares Pajaro's schools, district level staffing, and other things. We'll share that with you. And then we're going to do fit reports, and then portable analysis, working away like crazy. Sergio is not here right now, but he has reported that we are removing 22 or 24 lease portables over the summer. And so we will be remaining with 3 lease portables that a special program is leased, wants to continue to still lease them. But the district general fund and bond fund and developer fees will not. So we'll get all of that information to you going forward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Preston. Yeah, he's got it. Thank you. So we're gonna get Preston up, and he's got a slide to tell you all about himself. And Preston, the other most important thing is you cannot move this. You have to be right here. No, you have to be right here. Yes. I got you. Okay, there you go, young man.
How you all doing this evening? I'm really excited to be here. I just want to name before we even get started, this is really complex work, right? And I just appreciate you all for leaning in to participate in this, because it is these types of conversations that you're going through that are just really critical for the school district and for the kids in Pajaro Valley Unified School District. So I just want to I started out as a teacher. I've been an administrator now, and I've done a lot of work around school design, and I'll get to a little bit about my journey. My current title in Oakland is the Chief Systems and Services Officer, and the position was essentially created to improve the overall systems and services to who, the services to schools, and the services to students. So that's generally my orientation around it, is how are we doing the best to support our students and staff, and have been working over the last 7 years to implement systems around that. I'm over all of operations, but also over the facilities program over the last 3 years. So I want to talk a little bit about my journey, because you might be wondering, why is a guy from Oakland going to have anything relevant about like kind of experiences with schools and kind of how the district is structured. I was born in Alameda, which is just right across from Oakland. And my mom worked at Weyerhaeuser. And on the inside of Alameda, there was a lot of manufacturing and a lot of agriculture that was there in the Bay Area at the time. And when that all shut down, we moved down to San Juan Bautista. And my mom worked for a large portion of her career, all in, whether it was Weyerhaeuser or VGS. And so I spent a lot of my childhood in and around this area going with her to work. And so I have spent a lot of time in Watsonville in this area. And so I do have deep connections, emotional connections, because when I was in high school, I used to come right through here, going over to Good Beach and other places. So just want to tell you that is like kind of, there's a deep connection to my schooling and where I went. San Juan Bautista was a very small school at the time, and now I understand that they've combined with another school district, so things are constantly dynamic and constantly changing. I went to Hollister High and then moved on to UC Davis. I landed in Oakland, and this is me, up in Oakland in 1995. And probably very similar when I heard you just talking about portables and all the things. That time in California, there was a lot of immigration coming into California, and portables were being placed in schools all over, right? There are individuals in my departments now that really marked their careers by when they were installing portables in the city of Oakland, right? And we have our master plan focused a lot on the excess portables and kind of the condition of those portables now. So that was one of the portables that I was in, and it was horribly hot. There was not a lot of the windows were not operable. As a teacher, I launched the first biotechnology program in Oakland. That was at the time that the small schools movement was going forward with the Gates Foundation, and so I was a teacher leader and designed Life Academy as a school of 250. So those roots in San Juan Bautista, in some ways, really connected to me to the design of the school, because there are things about getting small groups of adults together working around students that's a really powerful tool to drive outcomes for kids. That school ended up having, over time, we had one of the highest college going rates in the city of Oakland. It became both a local model, but also a national model. At that time, very similar to what you were just talking about, there was a parcel tax to really put linked learning in place across the district. And actually the name of linked learning, are people familiar with that term? Linked learning? It's essentially CTE focuses within the high schools. And so I led that work in the high school and did redesign in the high school for 5 or 6 years and increased our graduation rates by about 13.5%. A lot of that was around redesigning high school. Oh, yes, awesome. Career technical education. And so, for example, if you came to the school Life Academy, I was the science teacher in the school, and we would work to get students into the hospitals and interning, and they would take specific sequences of classes that oriented them around health careers. And so there's a lot of students, and actually, that student right there, every day when we were in our office, Serena, she works at Alameda County Public Health, and they were in the same building as the district in the central office. So I ride the elevator with her 20 years later as she was working in that industry. So I have a deep background there, and then currently leading the district's operations, and I've intersected with school redesign, school closure, school consolidation through my whole entire life. When I was a student in Alameda, in kindergarten, my school closed the following year. And I had to merge over with Washington, and so I remember that journey as a student, but also I've participated in many different phases, and I'll walk through that in a second. So that's who I am, and that's kind of why I think I have an interesting take around some of the issues that you all will be confronting as you talk about the structure of the district as it moves forward. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move in? Because I thought it was really important to talk about who I am and why I was here and what I have to offer. Okay. And I did play basketball, so I did play at school somewhere. Okay. So we're going to talk about build a vision for optimal schools grounded in quality. Another goal is to connect school design and cohort work with the mission, vision, and purpose of PDUSD. And go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. So you guys have a $100 million deficit right now. How many schools have you closed in the last 7 years? Thank you.
So it's not 100, it was 105, and we've been working to restructure the budget in lots of interesting ways. And I think we're moving in the right direction. In the last, you said 7 years? Right now, there have not been closures since, I think, 2020. So in the last 7 years, there were 3 schools that closed. And right now, what we're noticing, particularly in the city of Oakland, and I have heard you talk about in some of your meetings that you have a charter presence within the area as well. There's a very large charter presence in the city of Oakland with about 13,000 students that are in the charter system within the city of Oakland. We've experienced a lot of charter closures within that period of time, and that has actually been supporting our enrollment as charters have closed. I think this year there were 3 charters that are closing at the end of this year. So, and I'm over the enrollment office as well, and so there are some strategies we can use to bring families back. And I'll talk a little bit about that. It was a good question. And I can get you the exact numbers. Okay. So some lessons learned from our strategic work and planning that I'll share with you all through a couple of examples. And then we're gonna spend some time actually with you all sitting together in affinity groups to talk a little bit about some design thinking around what you're aspiring for the district to be as you move forward. It's a really important thing to have an asset approach as well when you start talking about how you're restructuring and kind of thinking about redesigning the school district. And then we're going to really talk in depth about cohort modeling and how you use that around school design and how you're thinking about developing an enrollment process for the school district. And then we'll begin to apply those principles to your data set. Okay. Yep. What's that? Yeah. There we go. So I want to talk and this is often in almost every single school district has a slide that gets to purpose and gets to mission and vision. And I do want to say that there's not a lot of difference between the collective way and kind of the mission and vision statement that you all have with many other school districts that I've worked with, and specifically around Oakland Unified School District. You're all looking to improve the outcomes for kids to reaching their highest potential. We prepare students to pursue successful futures and to make positive contributions to the community and global society. That's why we are all here today. And the very students that are in Oakland Unified School District are not dramatically different from the students that are here. It's just a different context. And your context is really important, and you're going to bring that to this conversation that you all are having. I was shared this about 30 years ago, and it has changed, and I want to just share this with you as a framework for you to think about kind of how you're proceeding with this. Our mission and vision a lot of organizations do really well at getting here. And you wouldn't be in this room right now if you weren't values aligned with the work that you do around students. And I think that we all share this. The hard part is the theory of action work around how you're gonna go about doing it, the strategies that you're gonna employ to get there, the goals and objectives that are shared, and I mean really shared by everybody in the room, the action plans, and then ultimately the work plan. This area is an area where we often start here and we don't get to the details here, and that's where quality starts to erode in a school system. And so I'm happy to go in more depth around this at some point, but I just want to put this out there as a framework because you need to not only be always talking here, and this process will give you a lot of information to start developing these pieces as you move forward. And you do have some strategic goals that are aligned, and I'm going to use some of those as we go throughout because I think it's really critical to have these clearly identified around what you're shooting for on the academic side of it, the professional learning environments that you're creating for your staff, the climate and culture and community, and this fiscal responsibility question. Ashley, your question was really about where Oakland is right now. And it's not just Oakland. There's many, many districts all across the state that are really struggling right now post-pandemic. Yeah, go ahead.
There are also school districts that are doing very well. The only reason why I asked for your fiscal climate is because our district compared us to you. Thank you.
Our district. Okay, I got you. But this is really critical because there have been waves, and a lot of the work that you're going to see here have been driven, when I give you the examples for Oakland, have often been driven by this. But you should be also driving it by that. And it's just really important to hold on to that. Okay, a couple other pieces that I'll share. What are the headwinds we are facing? And I say we because this is something that is not just individual here to the work that you're doing, but it's also very true in Oakland as well. Declining enrollment, local, state, global context. It's largely driven by two main factors, and I think these are very similar across both school districts. Lower birth rates. People are just having less kids now. And there's a lot of variables that go into that, but that is your foundation for your school district. Secondly, higher cost of living in California and actual housing decisions that are made by the city entities and county entities deeply influence your school system. Oakland did 15,000 units in the last 7 years of market rate housing. That is not who our school district serves. It's affordable housing that drives enrollment into our school district, and there was a void of any building around affordable housing, and that is something that is outside of the control of the school district. It's a factor you can't control. So as you're looking at these maps, you all know when you drive around, you know where the growth and development is happening. That's going to ultimately influence your school district. And immigration policy is deeply impacting who's coming into this country and where they're coming. Right? And with the agricultural base and the demographics that you serve, the geopolitical issues are also impacting your school district. Our decline in enrollment is largely driven by that right now. And that's a factor that we don't control. There were times 6 years ago where we were just trying to find spaces for newcomers as they were coming into the city of Oakland. Right now, our newcomer population has reduced to almost none. That's huge on the school system, and the school system has to adapt to that. Two, I've heard you all talk about it in the last session, but like the aging infrastructure that requires large sums of money, the deferred maintenance, the aging portables, and then where are you gonna invest your facilities dollars? That's the one thing that's huge amount of money. It's a huge amount of money. And when you're talking about right now, the heat issues that are in our schools that were designed to, kind of Mediterranean climate, it's really expensive if you're gonna try to address those things. And to do it across the whole system, we have 108 campuses. That's a huge investment that we would make, and the same thing's true for you all. You have community demands from competing systems, and I know it's a little bit different. One, surrounding districts, inter-district. I don't know how much you have, but there are ways that families can transfer out of your district and go attend other schools. That's a variable you have to monitor. In Oakland, we have giant billboards from other school districts in the center of our city, trying to recruit our families, right? We've invested a ton of money in a campaign to bring families back, and it's been working. But when you get into budget issues, then we're rolling back some of those investments, and we'll see what the impact is on our enrollment. But the two things that drive your budget are enrollment and ADA, attendance. Those two are the huge drivers for the budget that you have to spend the resources on students. Competing demands, private schools and charter schools. I know you do have some charter schools. I don't know what the influence of private schools are. I do know historically where families have gone. I don't know if it's still the same 36 years ago or whatever. And then shifts in transportation costs around large districts. And generally one that's probably really powerful for you all is like the higher cost of living for families and staff. It impacts both sides. So there's a lot of commonality. All these things are true in Oakland, and I assume most of them are true for you all here. One more, and then I'm gonna pause for some questions and you to turn and have a partner talk about it. I've been looking at a lot of school districts and how they handle these situations. And I created this as a draft for you all. It's not something that we're using in Oakland. It's just generally something when you look at the research. These are some key factors that you need to be looking at. And it's kind of a cheat sheet for you all. It's a draft, so if there's things that you want to change about it. One, enrollment at the center of all the things. Because that's like who's coming into your school district. Around this is family interest. And one of the things that is really, really critical to understand is why families are choosing the school district and why they're choosing the places to go. And oftentimes we don't listen enough to them as to what their expectations are and aspirations are for their children and where they want to send their kids. And I'm gonna show you a couple of tools that we've used in Oakland to look at that. Then there are four main factors that I think, and if you can look at research of other school districts that are dealing with this issue, you'll see these themes come up. Programmatic offerings and the academic outcomes. Like what are the services you're trying to provide to your students in the school district and in different communities within your school district? Because you're a pretty large geographic district with lots of different nuances in each individual community. What are the programs that you're offering and making sure that students have access to a lot of different programming throughout the city? I'm gonna go around. Operational factors. Our food service workers. I think a lot of people don't even think about like how to create a quality food dining experience in our schools when now they can get breakfast, lunch, and supper through the universal meals. How are you structuring your staff so there's a team of people there working together around that issue? And there's lots of different operational factors that have huge costs for the district, but a lot of times people don't think about it. It's more about the quality. Secondly, the facilities factors, I think you've spent a lot of time talking about them, but like it's not what your facilities are now, but where do you want to invest in when you move forward? And then finally, the fiscal sustainability of the district and what you're able to offer. And so I created kind of some questions that are over on the side. If you're thinking about in this area, what are some questions you might ask? Operational factors, what are some questions you might ask? And then on the fiscal sustainability side, there's some questions. Yeah. Oh, too far away? Oh, you sound too loud. Okay. Okay. So there's just some primers, and we could change and add questions. But this is a tool that I think would be really helpful for you all as you're engaging in this process and thinking about different variables to discuss. And then one of the things I just want to point out is that outer circle is really around equity and what are the student outcomes you're driving for and who's being served by the system and who's not. Because that's an important conversation to have. So that's kind of the framing. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to turn to your partner and I've said a lot, and I'll give you a second to just kind of turn and talk through some of the things, and I'm going to leave this slide up there. And then we'll come back with a few questions that you have before we move on to the next section. Okay? So 3 minutes? Okay.
Well, question of why would families choose us? I don't know why they would. I feel like families, if they would have a choice, they would choose other schools. Just how I feel about student safety, about leadership decisions. I think we need to build structures that the community has more input on the decision making. So I'm just sitting here wondering, yeah, well, why wouldn't you? If someone can answer that, that'd be great. But that's the only saving grace that I think so. I 100% think so. And I think that we don't even listen to our teachers. Like what's going on at Pajaro Middle School is to me a better example of you got no enforcement of head code, but you have the staff showing up to fight for their students. So
What about if you focus on any other funds that are, do you have anything positive you can say?
not really, because I was looking at like, okay, so how can we organize our budget to sustain services? By laying off counselors and mental health clinicians and then using restricted funds to supplant that work through PVPSA, Compass, and outside agencies. I think we lose accountability and control when we take jobs that should be our jobs and we move on to different departments. Because I looked at our FTE and staffing levels pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and the majority of those counseling positions existed free as dollars. So I requested that data and looked at particularly for counseling. There were some social emotional counselors added during the pandemic, but for the most part, that staffing existed pre-pandemic. I don't know the ratio off the top of my head.
Okay. Let's wrap it up. You have about 20 seconds. I'll let you finish your thought.
And then where can we reduce the central office to the circular schools because opening the public information on that we can have people who see them in and we can lessen our reliance on.
Okay.
Action for streaming and that custom.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just
All right.
don't know you around.
This area. Okay. I gave you a lot. Any questions that you have or just thoughts or anything that kind of emerges for you around this before I move on? Because we will come back to this. I just think that this is a really helpful tool around some of the areas to be thinking about as you're moving forward. But any thoughts or any questions that you have before I move on to the next piece? Yeah,
I'd like to say something.
sure.
I just congratulated this young man because his classified workforce just settled for 16% salary increase retro to last school year and a minimum $25 an hour range. So even with a $105 million deficit, they're still able to pay their people.
I was talking about, there is a lot of work that you have to do around restructuring the budget to be able to do those types of things. So, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I think one question that I have is how does TK flow into this? Because we're talking about how do they choose us. So what's the retention rate of folks that enter at TK and maintain? We know the state did that on purpose to save schools essentially and transition state preschool into the school system, plus to also expand the educational learning component. But without those facts, because it's so recent of how many you should expect to keep within the school district, I'm having concerns about budget and forecasting being either too conservative or not ability to really plan for that and actually use some of that as maybe a greener pasture to reduce some of the decisions now, right? Because it's a lot. Once you close something, it's gonna be a lot harder to bring it back, right? So in thinking about this, those are some of the questions that I have.
No, and we're gonna get to a lot about TK, and I'll just name one of the things that our capture rate, one of the ways you measure this in the district is you see how many births happened in the year that you're expecting them to come into kindergarten. And there's a percentage. Every community, it's a little bit different. In Oakland, it was a little bit under 40, it was 48, 49%, right? So that's pre-TK, okay? So essentially what that means is every child that was born in Oakland, about half of them were gonna come to the school district. And one of the things that we've seen, and we've done a big investment in creating TK spaces throughout the district, and I could talk about some of the strategies we've used there, but what we're noticing is that if you can get students into the system earlier, two things are gonna happen for you off the start. Academic outcomes for children improve dramatically if they get that extra year, particularly the kids that aren't engaging in the system. An extra year of literacy is incredibly powerful for children, and we're starting to see that because it's still on the front of this, right? Because most school districts have just got about to the 50% mark. The second thing that we're seeing is an enrollment boost that's happening where the capture rate is starting to trickle up, and it's gone up about 5%. So we have 5% more kindergartners because their relationship has been developed with the district early on. So there, and we'll talk a little bit about that in some future slides, because really we're focused today on elementary, which is the foundation of your district. That's the foundation that starts with TK now. Okay? One more, and then I'll jump into the next. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to shout out our classified staff and our certificated staff. I was sitting here having a really hard time answering the question, why will families choose us? And I think it's the employees that they touch base with each day, including their site principals. But I think we all should look at that question really seriously, because outside of like the people doing the work, I'm not sure I would want to send my kids to this district just seeing how it's being managed. We talk about elementary today, and we're reducing our amount of reading intervention teachers at our elementary school sites. We're eliminating our counselors at elementary school sites, and we're eliminating our vice principals at elementary school sites. So every decision that this administration has made has come on the backs of our students. And I think if we can't even answer why will families choose us, a lot of this work, unfortunately, might be undone by the reality of our leadership situation.
I will just say that, like, to your point around the people are why kids come to school, right? The system that you put together around people, and it's how you support them. And there is a financial aspect to that around the school district, and that's why it's one of the quadrants to be talking about. So I do have a whole bunch to get through, but can you hold it? Yeah.
So I have a friend who works at the San Jose Unified School District, and they just voted to close 5 schools. Right. And with that, they did not trigger widespread educator layoffs because staff are being consolidated into other campuses. So if we close X amount of school facilities, will district match costs for those facilities be able to be reallocated to skilled staffing and in-classroom employment to reduce layoffs?
So let's get to that when I get to the example of one of the examples that came from one of the cycles of kind of a reconfiguration in Oakland. So I'll get to that in 1 second. Okay. So this is kind of the segue right into, so I've been in Oakland 31 years. That I started out as a teacher, administrator, all the things. There have been many different phases of this, because the first phase in about 2002, small schools movement launched, lots of schools across the entire city, right? And I was one of the people that got to design one of those small schools. So that was like a real amazing privilege for me. 12 years later, we were starting to consolidate at high schools. And a lot of my colleagues that were teachers and administrators, and some of my close friends, their schools were being consolidated back into large comprehensive high schools, right? And there's a lesson around the speed by which we were doing some of the expansion in the school district. At the same time, we went into state administration. And what that meant is that a state administrator came in and was able to make decisions around how the local governance of the school district was happening. And that's when the massive explosion of charter schools happened in the city of Oakland. I don't have the exact number, but it's in the 40s or 50s in terms of number of charter schools. So you saw a massive number of students leaving the school system, Oakland Unified School District system, and we had to respond, the district had to respond to that, right? And so that was that first phase. There were 3 phases for the blueprint for quality schools, which was actually much more similar to what you all are doing right now, right? Like where it was community engagement, there was engagement in the community, and there were deeper conversations. And there were 3 different cohorts that happened through that process. Then, as we move forward, and this is the most recent future, there was a sustainable community school redesign process, and a lot of these were driven by fiscal pressures, and were done in very short windows of time, and you can imagine that there was a lot of pushback and not a lot of time for engagement. And I'll talk about some of the lessons learned. On this side of the slide, I think this is really important, both in the decision making, and there's a few like tips that I'll just give to the group at large. One, continuity of site leadership was critical to long-term success in those situations. And I'm not just talking about the principal and the administrator at the site. It's also the teacher leadership at the school site and the classified leadership within the school being able to maintain that, whatever the decision is made, to have continuity in those teams. Secondly, everybody gets to the decision point and then something happens. It's not that moment that's most critical. It's the next 3 years after. What is the structure and infrastructure you're doing to support it? And it's like management support and leadership take 3 years to effectively build continuity at a sustainable school. So when you make these decisions, you have to be looking 3 years down the road. Because if you don't, it gets forgotten immediately with the next issue that emerges in the school district. Whether it's Chromium 6 or something else emerges in Oakland, it was lead. I got to do that one too. That was the superintendent of my first, said, hey, take on the lead issues in Oakland. That's persisted for a long time, right? Clear staffing model for merged or expanded school. You have to think about the staffing models that you're using moving forward, and interrogate your projections. I'm so glad you have people that are looking at your projections. Small mistakes or large mistakes or unintended, they start to multiply in out years. So interrogating those, thinking about them, thinking about being real about the numbers, not being overly enthusiastic about the one thing that we used to do as we principals, we used to be able to lobby for our school. Worst thing you could do. Worst thing. I could make all kinds of great stories about why there's going to be more families coming to my school, but if there aren't families in the neighborhood and it's not shown in the data, it's not going to happen. And then you make a staffing allocation based on that, and then all of a sudden the kids don't show up, and then you're doing consolidations in August, September. And that feels horrible. And I will tell you, when the worst part of it, the worst part of my job when I was the network superintendent was when we had to do mid-year layoffs. Like, I think every table when I sat across from the principal and some of the staff members, there were tears every single time. And that's when you know, and although I don't like ever wish that on anybody, when you're in a fiscal situation like that, you want to avoid that at all costs. You want to be thinking down the road. And then finally, mergers of closely located schools is highly successful. And there's lots of models of that because the proximity of the two schools together actually does help some of the transportation issues and also some of the informal kind of social constructs within the neighborhood can help feed into those schools. And I'll come back to some other things. So I'm going to talk about CCPA expansion and Roots Academy closure. Google it, check it out. Lots of things that were going on. I showed the different articles. That's one of our board meetings. I, at this time, was supporting CCPA. And some of the teachers that I brought into the district, one of my teacher leaders had left the school life academy that I was in and was actually leading at Roots. So I had connections in both schools, but I was working with the principal as a leader. And I want to talk about this because the reason I picked this was in cohort 1, and there's a lot of information I can get you about cohort 1 and what happened. It's now 7 years later. They had their first graduating class of the expanded school this year. And I could talk a little bit about the outcomes that have happened on that corner at 66 and International in Oakland. What it was is the CCPA expansion. We have a project now, it's a CCPA expansion of portable replacement. So I'm gonna connect it to the facilities thing so you can see how some of these things come together. We expanded by 2 cohorts in the 6th grade. So what does that mean is it was a school designed for 2 entering classes of 6th graders, and we decided to double it to 4, right? So that happened, and we were gonna grow by 64 students. This is one of the areas where they got the projections wrong. I had left the role as a network superintendent. They were gonna grow by 64 students. You just do the simple math, they would get up to 952 if you held all the kids, right? Somewhere along the line, the projections were off by about 150. And so they completely changed the facilities project to just not expanding the size of the school. The principal is calling me and saying, we're going to meet our project. Every year they were full. Every year they were full. But this is one of those places where you really want to attend and have lots of eyes on your projections, not just one, like the CBO sitting in the corner making that decision. You do want to vet that across all the different departments. Changed attendance and enrollment priorities to include as priority all students in both Section 8 housing assistance complex that were in the neighborhood. We changed our enrollment policy to ensure that the most vulnerable students in that community would get access to the highest quality schooling. If you have an equity issue, and I haven't really dove into the issues about who's enrolling where and how they get there, most of the time that you have equity issues in your school enrollment, it's around families not engaging in the systems. They're the last to come in, and therefore they get the only choices that are remaining as their choices. Right? Because I know that about 25% of your families are moving across to different areas. In Oakland, it's about 50%. So that's a variable to think about. And we have an Office of Equity, but there was somebody that was dedicated to ensuring that the families that had the least access was going to support enrollment into that school. And that was huge. To have a trusted individual that had equity at the forefront of their mind to help support families that are the furthest away from access to power and social capital to be able to get enrolled in the school of their choice. On the other side of the equation, we did decide, the district and the board decided to do an immediate closure. And what that means is, at the end of that graduation, the 8th graders graduate, you have 2 grade levels in a middle school that are left, that those families did not come back to Roots the next year. They had to go to a new middle school, right? And so that is a decision. And there's other decisions where you can grow it out, where it takes a couple years to grow out, but there are different options that you have there. But for those 6th and 7th grade families, received an opportunity ticket to select any open middle school seat. So they were the first priority in enrollment. So, and we found that we were really worried about attrition at that spot, that we would lose students. And really, we ended up maintaining about the same. 85% of students in those 6th and 7th grade returned to OUSD schools. There were some that left the area, but also you can see that this was right going into the pandemic. So a lot of people were also leaving the school district at large. So these are all the old portables, and I'm gonna bring it around to the facility part as well. These are the old portables. This is a middle school gym, and CCPA is a 612. Here's where they were in 2018-19 in terms of the total enrollment. Here's their enrollment this year. And a couple of things that I would just want to notice, like when we designed and when I sat down with the leader of the school, we designed around special education first. And we created the structure that we wanted for special education, and then we built the other cohorts around that. She was a fierce advocate for that. And that was a critical piece around the design. So notice the percentage of special education in the students is higher than the district average, and it's still higher than the district average. And many of those kids are going to college, which is not the district trend. Notice the graduating class in that year was 64. It's 115 this year. This is our highest performing high school now. Well, Oakland Tech would argue that they're the best, but on a kid per kid basis, they're doing an amazing job. Meeting the A through G requirements that you need to apply for college, it's even higher today than it was then. The UC acceptance rate, half of the kids, 56%, over half of the kids got accepted to a UC. And I just want to name, you might be thinking, oh, well, this is like it's a magnet program and you're selecting the best kids. No, no, no. The elementary school in that neighborhood has the lowest reading scores of any school in Oakland when this data was collected. Those kids are coming in reading at a second, third grade level when they're getting into middle school. And they accelerate it by intention in the design and a ruthless commitment to like quality for kids. Then you can see the CSU acceptance rate is higher. 85% of the kids get in. Almost every single one of the students at the school get into some form of post-secondary experience. And they even track the number of kids that go into trades. Because with AI and all that stuff, just gonna throw a shout out for my people in the trades, that is a huge growth area. So that's the school. Now what we're doing is the bond program that we have, instead of trying to maintain all those old like portables and things like that, we're doing a portable replacement. So those old portables that you saw here and that gym, they're all going down. And we're gonna be building this building that's designed for the high school and a new gymnasium that is high school sized and the whole school can fit inside, right, for the 612. So that is an example of like what is possible with some intention and design. And like I said, this was the time that we were doing a process similar to this and being very thoughtful around where we were making our investments. Okay, one more thing, I just like kind of in this, you have to focus on the system and not the people. And what I mean by that is your systems are the problem. It's not the people that work in them. So the teacher that I was talking about that was at Roots, and I walked through and I saw she is so committed to children, and so was the principal, and so were all the people that I met. It was the systems that were broken that were feeding into that school. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they don't talk about the human element of what it means. When you are in a school, and I know this is true of people in this room, you are fighting for kids every single day. That's that worldview, that mission, vision stuff. It's the systems that get broken that you have to also be attended to as well. So you have to be soft on the people, because the people in those buildings, and what's interesting, the school immediately next door is called Lockwood. It was two small schools that merged together as one. And another school, Parker, closed. And the leader of Parker was a teacher at the time, is now the principal at leading Lockwood. And the teachers that were in Roots, some of them have moved over on both school sides. And so the staffing is still there, and they were in some of those other schools, but they landed up in, because the kids, if you do it right, the kids are gonna move to other school district schools, and the teachers will move with them, or to other schools and support the system as well. So really focus on the system and not the people, because I think that was the message that I saw, people that I deeply care about that were at board meeting upset and angry, and they just hadn't been attended to their needs and understanding how hard they were working on behalf of students. And that is true across almost every campus I've ever been in. Every parent wants the absolute best for their kids, and every teacher and staff member that's in that school is working as hard as they can for kids. And it's the system that starts to like erode. And I think we're really talking about building stronger systems. Plan for the future, don't react. When you are reacting because of the fiscal report that comes out or the state change or whatever, you can make really harmful decisions for the system. And so that's why I really appreciate the conversation that you all are having here, because you want to be looking down the road 3, 4, 5 years. And it's hard. Like those headwinds that you're facing are really, really hard. Focus on be decisive. When you make the decision, make the decision. The biggest thing that I've heard from principals, teachers, classified staff, the drivers that are in the maintenance team, it's when you keep going back and forth, and you can look, Google it. We've reversed our decisions on multiple school sites. That's so harmful for the families and the folks that are there. One minute you're gonna merge them, the next minute you're not. The next minute it's gonna be a closure, the next minute it's not. Like, do the hard work now, and then be decisive when you actually make that decision. And then the next 2 bullet points are really critical. Focus on quality implementation. Follow up on your promises to that community. Do not let those things go. If you say you're gonna go from school A to school B, you make sure that whatever you said is gonna be better at school B, better be better at school B. If that's a gym, if that's a modernization, if that is a new playground, if that is the teachers are gonna move to the school, whatever you commit to, make sure you focus on quality implementation and also be mindful of the change management. When you move and you do this, there's a lot of change that people are having to adapt. One of the things in Oakland that, like, older siblings have a huge responsibility of getting their younger kids to school, their brothers and sisters or siblings, right? And if you aren't thinking about that in the way that you're going through that, that's a change management thing for the family. They all of a sudden have to change their structure. Think through all of those things. And we're gonna do a little design piece that'll get you there. So that's an example of, like, when we went through one of our processes in the school district. And so those are some of the lessons we learned. There's other areas where it hasn't gone well, and I could talk about those as well. And usually when I went back to that slide about those 5 principles, one of those principles is violated, right? Whether you didn't support the leadership structure and the folks that were leading the work at the school, or you didn't follow up on the financial commitments that you promised around it, those are huge barriers to long-term success. Yeah.
When you talk about merging schools, did you guys have a situation where there was a school with bilingual school and another one that wasn't? And you
Ooh,
guys merged them or no?
I love that question. Can we talk about it when we talk about the cohorts?
Sure.
Because yes, because I will say dual language programming in Oakland has been a huge success across the board, but it has actually created some inequities as well, right? Because it is, not all families are looking at it the same way. Our highest demand school in the district that families choose, and like a lot of district families, a lot of district employees will be sending their kids to that school, has a huge demand rate, right? But it has a district-wide boundary. So it doesn't really, it's coming from all over the district. You have to be really thoughtful where you're putting your dual language programming. And there's some things that we don't offer that I think we are considering doing. For example, there's a charter school that provides Chinese immersion, like dual language programming. We don't offer that in the district. They have a massive waiting list. So there are some decisions where when you're understanding what the community is looking for in the schooling, you should be thinking about, and the conversation we're having is where could you put that program where it would be successful in bringing the families in. So it's a great question, and I'll give you some potential structures that you can use to support it when you're merging 2 school communities together. Okay, let me jump into this is where you all get to talk for a little while, and I'm gonna break you into groups. Yeah, oh, one more question, yeah.
Awesome. I have 4 questions, but
Oh,
again,
wow, okay, here we go.
no need to respond. Let me just read this off to you guys and my thoughts real quick. Question 1, what happened to the schools that were closed that you guys closed? No need to respond right now, just want to get these through.
Great question.
What pushback did you guys receive before the closures? From community, staff, and all that. Also, at the time of closures, did you guys experience certified and classified layoffs before the closures, and what did you do? What did you do to address that? Plus, we were told in a previous meeting that even though we're closing schools or thinking about closing schools now, we were going to have to do it again in the next few years. Did that also happen in your projections, and have you had to do that, and what did you do? And when going back to some of your slides, when you talk about focus on system and not the people, I think there's a little disconnect because, again, right now we're dealing with the issue about Duncan Hobart where that system is working and should not be dismantled. So, I think that is not being considered into this presentation as well, because why would we want to reinvent a wheel that's actually working? Plus, the quality of implementation that you were talking about, for this district, it's taken years, and we still have yet to see some of those implementations at hand at certain schools. What did you guys do to help that out as well? Thank you.
Those are really good questions, and I'll hit a couple of them, but also hold them, and if you want me to answer some, I will say one of the things that when we talk about like forward thinking around things, and it's, okay, cool, is definitely this is where Oakland's in a challenge right now, and I inherited this challenge. We have a whole bunch of vacant properties, and we have to have a plan for that, right? Like, so I just would say that is something that was always pushed to the back burner. I do think you need to be thinking about the future use. And in the recent future, or in the recent kind of the last school closure was Parker Elementary. And we moved the adult education program into the school. And then we also had a Roots Community Health, a health organization that did outreach in that neighborhood, was looking for space. And so we have a joint use agreement with them that has worked out well, right? But there's still all the thing that I, think about is that, like, what are all the deferred maintenance issues at that school? It's almost 100-year-old school, so the boiler system is going to go out, and, the electrical infrastructure needs work. So there are some areas where you need to think about that. What was the last question was around the... Yeah, okay, so yeah, I think this is where the intention and looking down the road, like, I can't, the projections are the best we have, and you have a really top firm coming in to provide you projections looking out, right? But the further you get out, the worse your projections are, right? There's vulnerability there, right? I will say that, like, you do have to consistently revisit this ongoing. Like, it's not something that you could just be one and done and do it. I do think there are areas, and I'll just speak a little bit to the question about quality spaces. My school, Life Academy, was in a building that we were moved into it. I applied to a grant. I got the grant to build a new science wing for the school. It turns out that the building was not approved by the Field Act, which I don't know if people know what the Field Act. There was an earthquake in Long Beach, and there's certain design requirements at a school. It was a Red Cross building. I mean, I wasn't worried about it coming down, but we had to vacate that school immediately by the end of the school year. And we moved over to a new campus, and on that campus were two middle schools. One was in the process of closing, and I don't know the whole story behind Peralta Creek, but one of the things that we coexisted well there as they were closing out, and then Life Academy kind of took over, and this was in 2000, right after the Great Recession, so 2008, 2009, the superintendent walked through and he said, "Preston, I just want to let you know that the financial situation is going to get hard. And this is, there wasn't going to be enough money to maintain all these small schools because it had been subsidized by philanthropy. The Gates Foundation had given a lot of money. And he said, I need you to grow your school." And I, in a room somewhat like this, started getting the parents together for Life Academy and started talking about, what do we want to do? Do we want to double as a high school, or do we want to go down and become a 612, right? And they were adamant that there weren't quality spaces for their kids in 612, in the sixth grade in transition, and we heard that, and I came back within a couple of weeks and said, hey, let's grow to a 612, and it got approved and we moved forward. When we did that, there was so much pushback on how our middle school and high school kids couldn't be on the same campus together. So much. I had to meet with so many people talking about how my kids, the high school kids, when they came over, weren't going to be these, like, they were going to be hanging out in the middle school areas. And we, like I said, deliver on what you're promising. So my administrative team, we were standing at the middle school just to make sure that no kids would come across those lines. And so I will say that a lot of things become more possible than you think. And this is where kind of some of the design thinking will come in. Like right now, like I will tell you, TK is hard. I don't know if is anybody like, TK, okay. It's different, right? Yeah. And it's a huge value to the community. It's a huge value to families, but the students are not as ready as kindergartners are to school, and there's different issues that come, and you have to be thoughtful about how you're designing that And we're doing we have about 800 families that want to get into TK, but we can't get them into TK because the schools are kind of locked and they're full. And so we're creating some TK hubs, and we've done it we've been piloting it, and it has been helpful, but it's also been really, really hard as we're implementing and growing that, but it's providing more access to families. So there is a lot, and that's a great segue into this next piece. D-School, people familiar with D-School and like kind of the work at Stanford around design thinking? Because it's kind of what y'all are doing, and we're gonna do a little iteration here. Let me walk through it just real quick. It's hard because I like to be next to the slide. Okay, the first thing is understanding people in context, right? And that is really, you really gotta get close.
Like you can carry
Oh,
it.
I can.
So you can do that.
Right on, okay.
You can feel like
Here we go.
power.
Okay, that's way better. Okay, so, because I usually move, like it's not okay. So one is that you really have to get with students, like particularly middle school and high school, like talk to kids about what their needs are. Like they give so much. Our master plan that we put together was informed by students in all city council. We had community meetings in the schools and talked to students about it. But also families understand what they're looking for, the design features and things like that. Then you have to clearly frame the problem you're solving. And that's where you all are right now. And a lot of times people skip past this. This phase is really important where you define your problem and you define what you're gonna do. And so I'm gonna give you a little time to define, and then this committee's charge, this advisory group, is to ideate, to generate a wide range of ideas of what's possible that you'll be able to do. And so give yourself some permission to think out of the box a little bit. Oakland Unified School District has a lot of 612s. That is not a standard thing. And there was a lot of concerns about middle school and safety issues and how middle schools looked in Oakland. And 6 through 12s have been a very durable, and our two highest demand schools are Life Academy and CCPA now. Because it's something that is proven for a long-term relationship with families for 7 years. And that's what families in Oakland are looking for, is that stability. I've had kids that have moved out of the area to Sacramento when I was a principal, and they would still find their way to Life Academy every single day. And they were not affluent families. They would do lots of different structures to stay in the school. Then you do some prototypes, and then you test and learn, and you go back around, and you just keep doing this. But we're gonna go through this, and we're gonna do a little bit of ideation about, if you don't do some visioning things here, you can make a lot of mistakes in the designs that you're choosing. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna break you all up. See, I should really just keep this with me. Okay, I'm gonna break you up into 5 groups, or it's actually 8 groups. But one group is kind of merged with 2 tasks. If you're a family, well, the name's right in front of me. Okay. Oh, I got you. Okay, so I could call people off. Let me walk through it real quick, and then I'll just.
So there's group things around that, so based on the names.
Yes.
But you can just mention that, you could go there.
Okay. But I just want to check before, because this first group's kind of a special group, because you might be in title, you might be an administrator, or you might be a classified staff when I go to those groups. You also may have a student that's in the school system as well. So I just want to see, by like a show of hands, how many people actually have children that are in PVUSD? Oh, or grandkids. There we go, family members. Okay, so a lot of people are gonna fit in that first category, but some people are here just only because they fit into the category of being family. Who are those people? There we go. Oh, just one, two? Two, okay. So what we're gonna do is there's 3 questions that you're gonna be answering. And each group's a little bit different. And this is intentional because it's the power of the group around what you're thinking about this work. For family, and particularly special education, there's 2 over here. As you entrust your child to PVUSD, what do you want to be true for your child so that they can support your dreams and aspirations? Right? Like my mom was a single mom, and I remember kindergarten walking in with my hand and handing my hand over to Miss Fredericks, and she said, "That's your mom at school." And I was like, okay. She didn't have any other options, and that was she saw her as my mom at school. That was the way that my mom thought about it. So I use the words intentional about dreams and aspirations because definitely your families have dreams and aspirations for their kids. So then the second group, you're going to break into group, I think this is 2, there's 3, 4, 5. Administrators, teachers, and I think there's a teacher from a charter school as well, and then classified staff. And I'm going to use a couple of words. What are the enabling conditions? Enabling conditions like the things that allow you to do your work well and make you really effective at your job. Those are the enabling conditions that you need in your role so that you can maximize your potential in service of students maximizing their potential. Right? When we're talking about people, it is the people that do the work together that bring the kids along. And so in each of your roles, what are the conditions that you need in order to support that work? And then there's some other groups that are neighborhood members, community members, business organization, or planning side. What are the conditions that you want to be embedded in PVUSD schools so that you can deliver on the promise that students will make positive contributions to your community? Okay, so 3 separate questions, but 8 groups. All right? Okay, there's different poster board, and I'm gonna tell you where you're gonna go, and I think there's some pins. Just so you know, when you come back, put everything down. There's no wrong answers, just put your things on that sheet. When you come back, I'm gonna ask you to put a star next to one of your most important things that you wanna share out with the group. And if there's any wonderings or questions that you have, you're gonna put a little question by it. We might not get to all of them, but I'm gonna collect all the posters so that I can kind of see what the patterns are across the board. So here we go. So let me see. I'm gonna go group 7. Where's group 7? Group 7. It's John and Raymond and Caitlin. I'm gonna go here. We got the community neighborhood members. That is Joanne Metodi. Okay. And then Steve. And then the member of community at large is Artemisa? Okay, there we go. Classified staff is Ashley, Maciel, and Imelda. Are going to go to group 5 over there. Oh, it's right by you. There you go. You're ready to go. Teachers, Kat, Brandon, Jorge, and Lucia. Okay, good. And then the administrators, Heather and Selene. Okay, got it. And then are going to go, that's group 3. Okay. And then group 1 is over here with Family Voice. Did I miss any? Special education. Casey. Well, go with teachers. There you go. Okay, I'm going to give you only 10 minutes. So I'm going to give you a reminder about halfway through. You're answering these questions and put all your ideas on the paper. Oh, Paul, where do you go? What do you do? How did you get there? Paul, you're right here. Paul, you're here?
Handheld mic. Okay, this is great.
if you have
And we need to wrap it up. We have two more presentations besides this, so. This is really, really important, great work though, going on. So we will keep all of these documents, and we will transfer to a document. So we're a working group. So this is, you will not be, this is not the first time you will see this, will come back. So this is, I hope, like Bill said at the beginning, you're getting excited about the kind of work that we're doing, and we're getting, as we get more information, we're getting more and more like the purpose and where we get to these committees. So, okay. So we have microwave now? Okay.
microphone.
Let me turn it on this way.
Okay. Oh, because they're watching. Well then. Okay.
So you can bring it up.
Okay. All right.
Hold it for you.
No, it's fine. I'm good. Okay. So we're gonna leave. These are gonna be available to you all. I just want to quickly do a whip around. If you were in group 1, can you just read off maybe what they starred?
Yeah, I can read it for you.
Okay.
It says parent needs and inspiration. The number 1 is safe, community, feeling of belonging, happy, supported.
Safe, community, belonging, and supported.
And a lot of the other things that say that kind of goes around that.
Since we have people looking at cohort or group 4, what's the top one that starred? It's aids and support in large classrooms? Yeah. See, you stay up. I'll call on you. There we go.
Oh, hi. Yes, and this is like what I had this last year. I had 20 energetic boys, 12 talkative girls, 8 IEPs. Let's see, 6 behavioral tier 3s, 5 504s, 4 students with autism, 3 academic tier 3s, 2 academic 10th graders. And then A that had to leave my class for TK, so I had no really aid.
I am so impressed that you actually had a song for your star. I have never seen that before in my life. Okay, great. Yeah, that's, okay.
So you want me to stay back here and keep going?
No, we just want the stars. Can we, the star,
And 0 meltdowns. She had 0 meltdowns.
the star, it's, I can read it from here. It's a living wage for the classified group. Was there a star on that one?
I'm gonna put we're gonna use the top one as the star. So graduates with critical thinking and problem solving capabilities.
Huge. Awesome. We have living wage that is there,
A living wage.
a living wage.
Asterisk, asterisk.
Over here, there was a hard time on group 7, but they did star it. What's the star on group 7? Oh.
It says increase pathways like CC, CSUMB, and UCSC plus CET. Is that what that is? Or CTE? And then maybe this one is along with it, the percent that work in the district, the city of Watsonville.
Awesome. Thank you. And then group 3 was the administrators
Equitable access and opportunity.
across the schools. Awesome. Okay. Now I'm going to go real fast. And there's some good stuff in here, so I could come back to it. But I will tell you, this activity, and I know that we're short on time, is just really critical for you to keep thinking about these things. Because it's going to require in that one, remember the big circle that I showed you? You do have to make some hard decisions if you're gonna be able to offer people a living wage. Right, because the economies of scale at a district, particularly as expansive as this district is, there's gonna be some trade-offs. So I'm gonna talk briefly about the main thing that they brought me all here to talk about, which was cohort design, and I talked a little bit about it. I think this is where, yeah, okay. So I'm gonna go really quickly through this, and some of these things are just lessons learned and key points. And also, being in a large district, sometimes I have access to resources that I can share some things with you all. Cohorts, there's two ways to think about it. Individual groups of students that come into schools by grade level, you could think about it as a whole cohort. So all of the kindergartners that come in the year is a cohort, right? But you also could think about it in terms of the individual class is one cohort of students. So when you just sang your song, what was the cohort size? What was the total? Yeah, how big was your class? 32. That's a cohort of kids coming through a system, right? And then you could talk about the number of cohorts that you put into a school. There's a couple of key places that you're gonna see a lot of, you should be digging deep when you're thinking about these spaces. Are the transition grades. They're really critical. Is one, TK, earliest entry point, how many go to K? So this goes back to your question. 6th grade, when they leave 5th grade and they go into 6th grade, and then when they leave 8th grade, going into 9th grade. And if you think you're gonna start the conversation when they're in 8th grade, you're way too late. Because they already made their decisions up when they're in 7th grade. So just the timing of it is huge. I love this, but I'm just gonna say it for a second. This is the movement of every single child in Oakland Unified School District during these years. This is their 5th grade experience and where they went. And I think there's a lot to be learned about asking the people that are moving from one school to another, your intra-district transfers, why are you transferring? What was going on there? And then you can see the massive shift that happens in 5th and 6th grade, and then you see the massive shift that happens between 8th and 9th grade. And by understanding what's happening in each of those schools, you can start to understand where there might be some programmatic alignment. Okay, cohorts. I mean, this is super simple, and I was gonna have you just turn and talk, but we're not. This school, School A, these are actually real school data. School A starts with 2 kindergarten cohorts. It has 2 TK, 2 kinder. What happens as they progress through the system? It's going down. This cohort's shrinking. That is an indicator that you may have some quality issues. You want to lean in on this school and understand what's going on. Because it might be the safety issue, right? It might be belonging. It might not, their child might not feel supported. But then when you see that pattern, one of the things you should be doing is leaning in and being like, what's going on? The next school next to it is a 4 cohort school. It has 4 kindergarten classes, 4 first grade classes. Notice it doesn't have TK. Why not? There's no room. It's full. If a student leaves, a student goes in. It's a high demand school. And it's a school of about 600-700 kids, right? And they stay. If a student leaves, another student comes in. They're leaving from that school to go to that school. That's something to attend to. What is it that that school is doing? The other one is School C. School C is an area of declining enrollment in the neighborhood. It used to be the same as School B. It used to even be bigger than School B. But because of the safety issues in the neighborhood, because of the demographics, it is getting smaller and smaller each year. That is really hard to confront. So when you see that, you know that you're having a smaller cohort each time. I'll get to this later, but it's some risk factors around quality that I think are just really critical for you to think about. Actually, how much time do I have? All of them? I have 3 minutes left? Okay. Okay. So, no, I'm going to go fast at the end. I got it. But I think this is really important, is that quote over there. The concern is when schools that become small by decline rather than design. You have to start making painful sacrifices that are really, really hard. And I want to give you a couple of lessons learned that you should be thinking about as you're inquiring about these schools. Number one, reputation, school perception risk. And I say perception because what people are saying in the grocery store, what people are saying at the farmer's market, what people are saying at the soccer is critical, because that's where all those decisions get made. So what the word on the street is, the smartest thing I did is I put all my parent leaders, I put a Life Academy parent leader. Man, they walk through the Fruitvale, people be like, hey, you're at Life Academy, I hear good things. Yes, that's what you need to do. But that perception, once you get that perception, we've tried to transform schools, it does not work very well because they're already branded. And that's tough. Second, grade level teacher content departure risk. Teachers are the heart of the school in terms of the academic program. If you only have two people paired together and they both leave, you just lost your first grade curriculum. Gone. So like where you have some levels of redundancy within the system, you have a natural support structure, right? There's formal and informal. Formal is when the administrator walks in and they do their thing and they give you feedback. It's probably the least powerful. It's hard to move a whole system when you have one person doing that. But when you have a team of 4 or 5 teachers working together and you lose one, the rest of the team holds them up. And they orient them in a way that's super informal, but incredibly powerful, right? SPED full inclusion barriers. As schools get smaller, it's harder. Your song articulated it. You start having certain like students that need more supports concentrated in classrooms. And it becomes really, really hard. Combination classes risk. As you get smaller and smaller, you get more combo classes. And if I've had my child in a combo class, I've taught mixed grade classes, it becomes really, really hard to teach instructionally when you have lots of different folks like in there with lots of different needs in the classroom. Heterogeneous and targeted support barriers, it becomes harder and harder to differentiate. The administrators will, like sometimes when you're placing in the 3rd grade or 4th grade or in high school, you start taking those cohorts and you're starting to, Preston and Bill always get in fights together. So Bill goes in this class and Preston goes in that class, right? The smaller the school gets, the less ability you have. I used to always do it, I need 8 leaders per class. So we would sit down with the teachers and we designed 8 leaders in each cohort at the high school level. So that I knew that when they broke into groups of 4, that there would be somebody, they could pull 8 together. Like there's some intention around that. Site leadership load risk. The smaller schools get sometimes and they don't have the supports, it means more lands on the back of the administrator at that school. All the things. The most, kind of the image that sticks in my head the most before a merger was one of our principals sitting in the office, holding the door open, trying to talk to a family that had come in. The nutrition services side was over here in the cafeteria. She's trying to monitor the line for the cafeteria and supervise the playground at the same time because it was just her, an admin, one nutrition service staff member, and a part-time custodian, right? And just watching her for 5 minutes, I was like, oh, wow, we need to help you, right? So like, there's a load that comes on your administrative team, and then just peer diversity and social experience, right? That we benefit a lot by the diversity in our schools, and what you'll find is that also starts to get compromised when you do that. Okay, I'm gonna go past this because they're gonna talk about it. Okay, our master plan has a lot of stuff. I can give you some copies of it so that you can read a lot about how we landed on this. Okay, here's what works, and I hope some of this is up there on the piece over there. Teacher collaboration, coherence and alignment, formal and informal, is the most powerful thing you could do to get great outcomes for kids. When everybody in the school is rowing in the same direction, you can actually go 2 grade levels a year for student performance. It is and it's been tested, all the people that it's drawing from, high expectations shared about the staff. That school that I talked about, CCPA, if you ever met the principal, she ain't letting you fail. And that is embodied by the entire staff, right? Timely feedback and progress monitoring, both from a professional standpoint, as how you're doing the work, but also for a student standpoint. Are you getting formative feedback? Not summative, not the test at the end of the year, it's all the stuff that comes before that. Response to intervention, and just being able to differentiate supports for kids. So this is kind of just what the research says about what works in schools. Oh, I turned it on. Okay, there we go. Okay, now you have to apply this to your school district, and that's why these maps are so critical, to have these, because your context is different than my context. I can give thoughts, but you all have to engage in what this dialogue looks like. Okay, here's the cohort stuff, and this is what I'm going to end with, and I'm going to actually take this over here. Okay, so this is a 3-cohort elementary school with SDC integration. And different districts use different language. These are self-contained classes that essentially, these are designed with 2 continuums. So students are at the early grades, and then they move up into the upper grades if they're in a self-contained class. And we have mild, moderate, and moderate here, so that you're having some level of intention of what their program looks like at that school site, right? And it provides inclusion opportunities up above here to take the weight off of the teachers in your SDC program. And I don't know what the do you use SDC? Is that, okay. Then this school has 3 cohorts in the school that is 20 students each. And I looked at your data, and the reason why this is yellow is because you really don't have enough students to fill that 3rd TK class yet in the percentages of kids that are in your TK versus K, but that can change in the future. So this is potentially 60 kids that move up into kindergarten, that move up into 1st grade, and this is assuming that all the kids stay, right? What tends to happen is, remember that first where they're kind of like leaving? That's what ends up happening, and then these classes get smaller and smaller. But notice with your class sizes, right? Now you get these 24s don't fit really nicely into 232s. So then you have these hanging chads over here of these 8 kids and then these 4 kids, and you get a combo class. And this starts to happen at this level. And this is the number of classrooms you need, right? And so that's the structure of a 3-cohort school. And I'm about to get to your question about the dual language piece. So you have grade level teacher teams of 3. So every grade level has a team teacher, and what that does for teachers is they can focus on different things, right? One can take the lead around math instruction for kindergarten while the other one's doing the humanities work, however you decide. You only have 1 4 to 5 combo class. But like I said, that's perfect. That's everybody stays. Perfect progression. And then inclusion opportunities in all grade levels. Somebody had asked a question in the video that I watched about the Prop 28. The number of kids you have with the average teacher salary is going to get you about a 0.5 arts teacher at this school site, right? You can supplement it, but there's LCFF support as well for that. But that's a 3-cohort school. When you go up to a 4-cohort school, same kind of representation, but now notice that you have 2 potential tracks, right? You have your non-dual language track, and you have your dual language track, right? Non-dual language, dual language. The teachers could still collaborate around some of the instructional items that you're going to go through in that day. But then these 2, you have a planning partner here that can work around the dual language and talk about what it means to do like Spanish instruction or Cantonese instruction. Notice here, and one of the challenges with dual language, I'm sure you all are experiencing these, there's entry points along the way, and at a certain point, kids that decide they want to go over aren't proficient enough to actually go into the program. Notice that there's a natural progression here where it goes down to a smaller cohort size so that you're actually not having to make compromises around class size there. And then you can have the 2 cohort, because a lot of kids will move in this direction. So then if you get all the class sizes are over there, now you have teams of 4 teachers working together, so it's a little bit more resistant to if somebody leaves. You have 2 and 2 structures, so that you have 2 and 1 grade level in the dual language and 2 in the other pathway. It supports 2 instructional models with some flexibility, likely no combination classes. Notice that these numbers, 96, fit really nice over here, right? So you're not having to do as many combo classes. Now your staffing goes up to arts, so you have a 0.75, and then there's more additional LCFF support that gets concentrated in that school, right? And they know what supplemental and concentration funding that the state gives to provide instruction for students that are unduplicated. And then you go up to 5, right? And this is a school of 868 in total, right? And now you have 5 at each grade level all the way through. And then you have really robust programming in terms of what's there. You have teams of 5 that are working. You have much more instructional flexibility, much more inclusion flexibility. This is where you get the full arts teacher across the school for a dedicated classroom. And then usually with your LCFF funding, you could provide instructional coaching, assistant principals, some other administrative structures to kind of support the teams. And then the SDC enrollment, I kept that constant throughout because I didn't know the percentages, but you can add that as well. All right, I think that's where I end. There's the prompt that just in terms of maybe for you to reflect on, and I think I'll be back next time so we can maybe pick up with this. It's like, based on what you heard today, where do you see the greatest promise of using cohort design and strengthening student supports, teacher collaboration, instructional coherence in the SSA process, right? So like, how do you take some of these factors and factor them into the way that you're thinking about it? And then secondly, where do you have questions or need more clarifications or would like more information? And I think if you, I don't know, is there a process for them to, parking lot. So if you have anything that, like, I know I got to 2 out of your 4 questions, so if you have some questions, I'm happy to respond to those next time and create like an FAQ if you have questions, because I know we went really fast and this is pretty deep stuff. So I think that's it.
I have a question.
Yep.
So you have about 77 schools at your school district.
Mm-hmm.
How many, like, if that's the model that you use across your district, right?
Uh-huh.
You have about 1,500 classified employees. How many teachers do you have?
Ooh, I can get you that number. I don't have it immediately off.
There's about I would assume pretty high, given that you guys are following that model district-wide, right?
We're, in terms of, I can get you the actual numbers.
Okay.
It is higher than the numbers that, we have about 5,500 employees.
Okay.
So but I could break it down by classification if that helps.
Okay.
So,
And just curious, you might know this, what percentage of that from your general fund, right, is funding salaries and benefits?
ooh, it's about 85% of all resources coming in, but I can get you the specifics.
85%.
Yep.
And
It's
they just
80
got a 16% raise.
Yep.
Very good job.
Okay. I'll turn it over to the money guy.
Okay, thank you. Actually, today is the day of the very tall. Paul is next. Paul is our director of transportation. He we work on this presentation, and so we're grateful you are here, Paul. And so he will talk about what are our constraints and how, as you listen to this, is how transportation, how to change on boundaries or consolidation of schools or close schools, how transportation plays a role. Okay, so just keep that on.
All right, thank you.
And you can cut it out.
All right. Once again, my name is Paul Bracco, your new transportation director. I've been here for a couple of months now, and certainly when Gerardo asked me to do this presentation, it certainly gave me a better view of the scope of the work that you're doing, and certainly want to thank you for everyone being here tonight. I have a lot of information, and I know that may be some questions at the end, but I'm going to ask you to ask the questions at the end if it's possible, so we can get through this presentation for you tonight. All right, I want to lean on our vision. Looks like I will carry this. Pajaro Valley District, our vision is every student will graduate ready to share their unique skills and abilities and be a positive contributing member to their community and the world. You know, we think about how transportation plays into education And let's all remember, it is the first link to students' education, right? Without transportation, students wouldn't get to school and get that great education. So, very important program that transportation provides. The overview of PVUSD services, again, ensure our safe, reliable, equitable transportation for all students. Key services, home to school transportation, prioritizing TK through 6 and low-income families. Program specific for transportation, our special ed students, serving the students with IEP mandated transportation needs. McKinney-Vento and foster youth students. McKinney-Vento, if you're not familiar with it, are unhoused students. So we want to make sure that they get a fair and equitable opportunity for a good education as well. Then we have our fixed route program for students. Our white fleet, we have electric buses that we've integrated into our district recently. And then we don't charge for transportation. Transportation routes and services this is our board policy. Who's eligible for transportation services to and from school is the distance between their schools and established bus stop and the schools beyond the minimum listed below. Elementary, K through 6 is 1 mile. 3-year junior high school students, 6, 7, and 8 is 1.5 miles, and our high school students is 2 miles. Ooh. Key transportation opportunities. I'm going to refer to my slides since that didn't come out. I'm not sure either. So efficiency, analyzing travel times and structural impact across Watsonville, Aptos, and our rural regions. We looked at capacity, addressing driver shortages or limited bus availability for expanded zones. And then equity, right? Ensuring access for our farm worker families, low-income households, and our rural communities. You know, when we look at consolidation, we look at, possible longer student travel times, right? Consolidation could reassign students farther from their neighboring campuses, particularly affecting, again, efficiency, analyzing travel times and structural impact across Watsonville, Aptos, and the rural regions. Again, capacity, addressing driver shortages and limited bus availability for expanded zones. And then equity, ensuring access for our farm worker families, low-income households, and our rural communities. Our current home to school programs, for general ed, we have 22 regular ed, 22 general ed routes with an average route time, that's AM and PM, 6 hours and 40 minutes. For program-specific routes, we operate about 30 of those, and the average route time, again, AM, PM, 7 hours and 40 minutes. There's also some routes that we have, I believe it's about half a dozen that do have midday runs, and those are roughly about an hour as well. And then we do have after-school programs, which is 29 routes with an average of 1 hour and 10 minutes. Could travel time decrease? It certainly could. Some of the specifics around adjusting those would be reduced mileage if attendance boundaries align with local enrollment. Bus routing eliminates any overlapping paths, and more students could safely walk, bike, or bike to school, right? Some of those key variables, school closure specific locations, rural community access points, and current and future service levels. The current staffing challenges. We currently have 12 routes that are being operated through a contracted services, Michael's Transportation, also shared with our 12-month employees also driving. So we do have office, our trainers and fuelers also driving routes. So that's 12 essentially vacant routes that we need to fill. We do have 15 students within the district that require outsourced transportation because they attend non-public schools and or programs that are not offered, because we have programs that are not offered at our district. Some of the highlight of the impacts are daily route cancellations and delays, difficulty scaling for expanded zones, and increase in operational stress. So when we're asking our drivers to do more, we see higher absenteeism. Expanded attendance area. Some of the structural constraints, potential outcome of consolidated routes. Lost instructional time because delayed arrivals due to longer travel time, longer durations on the bus ride. Supervision gaps, strain on the elementary campuses for early arrivals. And then we're looking at schedule disruptions where family work is impacted by the bus tiers as well, right? Equity considerations. Transportation is an important equity issue. Families most impacted by transportation changes may include our farm worker families and working households, right? Rural community students and families with children in multiple sites. Participation barriers. We're looking at possible athletics, right? Limited late bus options restrict involvement of those students that want to compete in those competitive sports. Academics, difficulty accessing before and after school tutoring programs, specialized programs. And then engagement, reduced parent involvement due to the travel distances to the new campus may be an obstacle or a barrier. Then we look at campus congestion and safety. Consolidating more students onto a fewer site could lead to heavier pickup and drop-off traffic at the school site, extended neighborhood wait times, and then increased safety risk for pedestrians because of the increased traffic flow. Complexity in special education, specialized routing. You may not know it's curb-to-curb pickup and specific medical requirements. Compliance with adhering to IEP transportation mandates, and then travel limits preventing excess bus times for our vulnerable students. Schedule coordination. We look at shared fleet, right? Utilizing buses across multiple tiers of effectively. Family impact. Again, work schedules and childcare adjustments. Staggered times, managing site and start and end times to accommodate those routes. And then staff impact, contractual hours and site supervision shifts. Transportation costs that need to be considered: increase in additional miles, increase in fuel consumption, increase in maintenance costs, and increase in driver overtime. Could costs decrease? Yes. Reduce in average bus mileage via better boundaries, elimination of underutilized routes, improved routing software integration, and then consolidation special ed sites. In summary, we look at access and equity, maintaining reliable services for farm worker and rural families is paramount. Compliance, program-specific transportation requires dedicated planning to maintain service quality. excuse me, and then we look at fiscal health, right? Long-term sustainability, depending on balancing facility savings against transportation increases. I want to take you to a FICMAT report that was done in July of 2025 to give you a state of what the district was looking at a year ago, right? 494 students were receiving special ed transportation. 431 were being transported on district vehicles. 63 were being transported through an outside provider. That gave us an average per bus of 14.9 students. But look at that cost of $72,000 a month for that contracted services. You know, when we look at currently, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say we're about 77,000 for this year. Challenges, some of our challenges are driver absentee impacts. Our services, our heavy reliance on those contracted services, not just for our special ed students, but also our costs for our regular ed to cover those routes, right? Transportation cost is not fully separated by program, so when Gerardo worked with his team, we were able to separate those costs for this year. Opportunities, you know, we certainly want to reduce student travel times, improve route efficiency, increase the use of district transportation, right? Improve cost tracking and sustainable metrics, and then align transportation planning for long-term facilities. You may not be aware, but the facility that we're currently operating in, it's a leased property. We don't own that property. So having a district-owned property would be a benefit for our district. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Are you required to give any adults for the adult school transportation?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I think due to the time, can I take one question from this slide, one from the middle, one from here, from regarding this?
Was field trips in there?
Field trips were not, those are extra trips.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any question from this side, the middle?
What's your fleet size and driver size?
Fleet size, we operate about 96 vehicles. That's electric, diesel, gas, and our white fleet. Yes.
This side.
I was just curious, going back to that last slide, regarding the outside contracts, contracted services. If you take that number and you times it by 12, that's around 800,000 for the year. Now, say you were to cancel those contracted services, could you use that money, or could the state use that money instead to be able to invest in ourselves to be able to provide those services within ourselves?
Yeah, so those are services that we need to provide, and so we are actually looking into do it ourselves instead of contract now.
Mhm.
And those are regarding the special ed transportation, specific sometimes we transport one student, so we need to improve in the Y-fleet. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, you know, if that money could be used for ourselves, and then we can
No, the
vamp
only
up our.
reason that we have those services is because we don't have the drivers in the fleet.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, has it been looked at as far as like, with that money, say we cancel those services, or those contracted services, but then use that money to be able to provide it ourselves? Is that something that's been?
Yes, of course, we
Okay,
have been looking
okay.
at that, yeah. So, yes. Okay, yeah, let's do that. So there was one section, and we will be back. So there's a lot of information. How about you just, if you have any other questions, go back to the parking lot. And I want to thank you, Preston and Paul, for presenting, and Bill. So you will hear more from Paul, and we have in communication. Paul is helping us on a weekly basis. So I want to know we are very thankful that he has gone through this process to guide us as we present to you information to reach these difficult decisions. So yeah, yes, spend some time, go to the parking lot and put your questions there. So, and thank you for the opportunity to participate. Yeah. Yeah, June 23rd is our next meeting. We will present the topics. We are working really hard to present the information to you ahead of time, and keep coming from your questions. There were some participants who were not here today, but they are engaged through. They are watching. They were testing me, and so just want to let you know that. So they are counting us as present because they were really engaged. So they watched the whole presentation. So thank you, everybody. Good night. You want to take some food? Just take your place. Yeah. You will be watching it? Okay. So can you send me like an email and then you'll watch it? Yeah.